So now for something completely different. The last few properties that I've checked out have been reasonably big properties by general standards, but in this case I've got a nice little house just on the outskirts of Caacupé. So as I understand it, it's actually technically part of the town of Caacupé, but as close to the outskirts as you can get. But the good thing is, because technically it's in the precinct of the town, it has the town water and good electrical service and all that sort of stuff that you'd expect. And it's only a very short car ride. You could probably even walk it if you were a little bit fit to the supermarket or whatever. I've actually been to this little house before. I did a video of this just last week, took it home and then deleted it from my computer somehow. So here we go again. So here it is, a nice little straight 2-bedroom house. The first thing that strikes me even before I go in is it's got an electric car gate opener, remote control jobby, so that's quite handy and cool. The other thing that's nice is that it's got a locking gate. So if you've got a dog or even a kitty that you want to put out in the front yard for a little while, it's nice and secure. So it's a lovely little entry into the property. And just looking out on the outside, in terms of Paraguay, this is actually pretty well done. This kind of design is fairly typical of around this particular precinct. I think that the architect must have been popular because this actual layout is quite common. But they've really looked after this little house well and, you know, done a little bit more to it, put a little bit of bling on it, which is nice. It's clearly been, you know, loved and looked after, so it's not abused or too bashed around. So in terms of the layout and the size, it really is more like a 2-bedroom unit, I would think, than what we would consider to be our standard size house from most of the places we come from. A small living, lounge and kitchen area. Yes, that is actually a kitchen right there, but there is some potential to do some things out the back I'll talk about in a minute. But the good news is it's got good fans. It's pretty neat and tidy. No crazy mold anywhere to be seen. There's a bit in the bathroom that I'll show you in a minute, but everywhere else is pretty tidy. There's no water coming in or anything like that. The floors need a bit of a zhuzh up, and the kitchen pretty much is like, I guess, a unit. As I say, it's probably the best and the best comparison I can make to it. But just for 1 or 2 people, or even a couple with a child, I think it would be to be relatively comfortable. Relatively compact little bedroom. You can easily get a bed in there, and it's got a nice ceiling fan and stuff, which is good. The other thing you want to look for is spots to plug in. And this has got 2, which is a real luxury. And it goes through to another bedroom. Nice ceiling fan, good air con. The walls, okay, I think. This one looks a bit, let's have a look. Yeah, it's just a little bit maybe in need of just chipping back and remedying. I'll go around the side and have a better look at that, but I don't think it's anything too drastic. By what you'll find here, good sockets on each side of the bed, which is nice. Floor looks okay. And the roof and everything looks cool. Now the good thing is, because of the compact size and you've got a decent aircon there, that would probably cool down this space very well. And if you had been here during the last few months, you would very much appreciate that. But a compact space has a lot going for it when it comes to the issue of heating and cooling. So that's just something to think about. And this house would be, you know, would be a good, easy house to keep comfortable. The bathroom's not too bad. It's kind of, as you'd expect, Widowmaker rather than a electric water heater, which I would be remedying. I much prefer the proper water systems, but we've been in houses that have been using these things really on and off for the past couple of years. So they work and they put out good enough water to have showers and stuff, but they call them Widowmakers for a reason. So ideally you have a proper system and they're not too expensive, thankfully. Now, in terms of this roof in this bathroom, obvious issue is mould. And in my estimation, that is clearly due to lack of ventilation. Doesn't matter if you've got a window, even if you open that window, once the steam gets above it, it's just gonna get on there and it's just going to do its thing. So I'd suggest some sort of ventilation device up further would most likely knock that out. Mould is a very common issue in these bathrooms, and in terms of Paraguay, one of its strong suits is not bathrooms, whether you're talking about plumbing or ventilation. And when we're talking about ventilation, not just bathrooms, but houses too, they generally don't think a whole lot when it comes to ventilation. So it's something I'd probably consider in this house also outside here. But a usable space, it's compact. It's a little two better. As I say, more like a unit. Some good electrical connections there, and everything seems to look like it works okay. Even got some curtains, which is pretty flash for Paraguay. I always look down the side of the house just to see what we can see, particularly the foundation, just checking out for rising damp or anything like that. Can't see anything too crazy. The thing I really like about this house is that it's brick and it's not stucco, so you can see what you're dealing with. When something's stucco, or when I say stucco, that's cement sort of finishing, you don't know what it's covering up, and it often holds moisture behind it, and that's where you can sometimes run into issues. But with a brick house like this, you can see what you're dealing with, which I like. The other interesting thing, and a thing that you always got to look out for on any building, is where's the water going off the roof? Now in this case, and it's very common, they don't have spouting. But the good news is it's throwing over to the neighbour's house. So you've got your wall here. So when you have those crazy downpours, which happen occasionally, that water is just going to cascade over to the neighbour, and then it's going to be up to them to sort it out. But it wouldn't take anything to throw a bit of spouting on that and to sort it out. Spouting is part of the plumbing suite of issues that aren't often thought a lot about. And just another little thing that I point out here is just you can access the backyard from this side. And I'll show you on the other side, because you can also on the other side. That, you might be thinking, well, what's the big deal there? Well, it's not uncommon in Paraguay that you can't sometimes access the backyard unless you go through the house. And that's not uncommon. So to be able to access the backyard from the side of the house, and in this case, you can access it from both sides, I'm pretty happy with that, because I think it gives you so many more options when it comes to your utilisation of the backyard. I'll talk about that in a little bit more. Side window here. Now, as we're going around and looking at the windows and all the rest of it, I think it's worth mentioning security. I am a big one for doing as the Romans do when you're in Rome. What you often see here, not always, but often, is some sort of bar system on your windows. Ideally, you will have your windows secured, usually by way of bars. Does that mean that there's a massive risk of break-ins or anything like that? Well, there is a risk like there is anywhere. But from the break-ins that I've heard of, I think that every one that I know about has occurred in properties that haven't had any fortification on their windows. So I think it's probably just a good idea to do that. It's very easy and quite cheap. There's a lot of good metal workers here. So that's just something that I would consider. In terms of its securability, if that's a word, this little property does lend itself to be able to be quite well secured, locked up and left, which is kind of cool. Now, this is another thing that I really love about this property. It's got a vehicle size access. That is brilliant. It's got some external power points, which is interesting. And just looking at the corresponding area where that bit of wall was a little bit dodge, there's nothing on the outside that's a real problema. So there's always a chance that that could be coming up from part of the foundation that's within the structure. Not a massive problem, and it wasn't really a massive deal. It was just a bit of bubbling. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that whatsoever. And there are remedies that you can apply, especially when it's really as minor as that. Nice modern aircon system. Now, just looking at that there, I'm always big, as I say, with any water that's running off your roof. I personally like to see that water run away. At the moment, it's just falling down onto the gravel, and then that's going into the ground where your foundations are sitting. So I'd just be putting a bit of spouting up, or maybe even thinking about putting some sort of shed or structure where I'm standing now, so that would run on that and run away. But you know, there's options anyway. That's just my way of thinking. I'm really, especially since coming to South America, I've really come to appreciate the importance of keeping your foundations dry and just trying to keep the issues of rising damp to the minimum. I think that's a good idea. Now, just looking at the rear of the property, just pretty straight really. What you could do with it, you could easily build off that. It wouldn't cost you much at all. I don't know what's happened there, whether it's been a door at one stage. I don't know. It's all pretty basic. Got a little holding tank there for water. If you, I guess, run out of water, you've got a tank and pump. And just to the side again. But one of the things I really like about this little property is its backyard. And I think that backyard is really quite a sizable, usable space. Really good solid fence. It's not impolite to put wire around your fence, you know, razor wire or whatever you want to put if that's your thing. You can even put a line of electrified wire. Also, you can just have a nice big dog ready to greet them. This property is on a rise in terms of its elevation, so you're definitely not in any immediate risk of any sort of flooding or anything like that. So, and they wouldn't generally build in a flood zone when it comes to a settlement like this. So all in all, I think this is a sweet little property for the price. Just in arriving here, I've been here for about 20 minutes because I was waiting for the guy that owns the property. He said that he was going to meet me here, but he was a bit late. So I was standing out the front for about 20 minutes, and there was just lovely young kids and nice people coming out and saying hi. There's no hint of roughness here or any sort of feralness. People seem to be very nice, and it just seems to be a very family type area. For the money, I would be as happy as a monkey in a banana factory living in that property. Nice little sweet, no nonsense unit type property on a good chunk of land in a very convenient part of town. Oh yeah, and just one other thing while I'm out here, just the road leading to the property. It's a dirt road, but there's no problem accessing this road at any time of year. It's not like it's going to become inaccessible. I'll show a clip on the way out as to how close it is to a paved road. You're really just a very short distance to the paved road anyway, so it's not really a problem. One of the unexpected blessings of a road like this is you're not getting people going past a mere miles an hour. It tends to slow things down a bit, and so that can be sometimes a blessing in disguise.
So there you go, a nice neat 2-bedroom house, more like an apartment really, on a nice block of land, a very good fence in a reasonable neighbourhood. So as a foreigner, I wouldn't have any problems moving there. I think you would be able to integrate quite nicely. 150 million, well, what can you get for that? The rental return on a property like that would be about 1.5 million per month. The modest price tag presents some interesting opportunities for the right people. It presents the opportunity to get out of the rental market. If you're going to spend any significant period of time in Paraguay, well, you'll soon find that renting here can be an interesting proposition. For example, if you pay a bond, it's not uncommon that you'll never see it again, no matter how well you look after that property. Not always, but it's commonly the case. When you're renting, what you get is what you get. For example, if you want to put in an air conditioner, extra fans, if you want to put extra security on the property, build a storage facility for the stuff you brought, well, you're kind of out of luck. Your rental property is what it is. And over time, that can become quite a chore. I personally would be putting a little bit more security on the perimeter and the windows. That's just my preference. And if you own the property, you can do that knowing that you are investing in your property rather than doing it on a rental property or not being able to do it at all. And also, such a modest price tag, you could feasibly draw that money out by way of ATM, and that's not uncommon. We know people who have bought properties simply by going to the ATM and accruing the money over time. Not ideal, but you're not dealing with a massive amount of money in that instance. It's really the price of a car. So it's not too much of a stretch to think that over the course of some weeks you could go to the ATM every day and within a relatively short period of time you could have that money in cash to settle the purchase. So when the outlay is so modest, it does give you that opportunity. In all, I think that property for the right party might present a decent opportunity. When I look at the building, the solid fence and all the other bits and bobs, I think that you would struggle to get all of that for that price. So the price tag is definitely in the realms of being reasonable in my view. I've looked at that property just as a potential buyer would look at it. So I haven't done the degree of due diligence that anyone would need to do if they were thinking about buying a property like that. Move slowly, ask a lot of questions, do your due diligence. There'll always be another property, so you're not in any rush. Just another one for your database of knowledge about property in Paraguay. And until next time, take care. Ciao.